When justice fails, revenge delivers. Story number 1. I work at a mid-sized company where I'm responsible for preparing internal reports. My boss, who's been under a lot of pressure lately, recently asked me to adjust some numbers to make our department look better. It wasn't a blatant order to lie, but the implication was clear. Fudge the data. I knew it was unethical and could backfire badly on everyone. Instead of confronting her or outright refusing, I decided to play it smart. I completed the report accurately and submitted it up the chain, CCing her and making sure everything was properly documented and timestamped. I saved all relevant emails and messages just in case. Sure enough, leadership noticed the numbers didn't match what my boss had previously promised. When questions started coming in, she tried to throw me under the bus, claiming I misunderstood her instructions. But everything was in writing. I had the emails, the original data, the final report, everything. Once I shared the records with HR, it was clear who was lying. Later, she was gone. Officially, she resigned, but everyone knew it wasn't voluntary. I didn't raise my voice or make a scene. I just did my job right and let her take the fall for trying to manipulate the truth. Story number 2. Ride your Harley full throttle through the neighborhood at 3 a.m.? Might want to check your driveway in the morning. Back when we lived in our old house in a different part of town more than 10 years ago, and everyone didn't have a camera pointed at their front yard, we had a neighbor a few houses up the street that had a habit of starting up his straight pipe Harley in the middle of the night, 1 a.m., 3 a.m., etc., then riding it full throttle out of the neighborhood onto one of the main streets and then off to wherever he was going. Then maybe an hour later he would come back. Same thing, full throttle. I was never sure if he was buying drugs, selling drugs, heading to a late-night poker session with his biker buddies, or what. Doesn't really matter. He would do this every few weeks, although sometimes a month or two would go by and we wouldn't hear it, and I always hoped that he either crashed, got arrested, or, God forbid, realized the error of his ways and cut that crap out. Nope, he would be back at it again just a few weeks later. He must have woken up dozens or maybe hundreds of people each time. You could hear that bike from a mile away. It would be the only sound happening in the middle of the night. Amazingly, the cop that lived right up the street, nearly across the street from him, apparently never did anything about it. Never figured that part out. Although there are noise ordinances in this city, they don't seem to be enforced very consistently. Anyway, so after maybe a year or two of this, and it happening maybe a couple of dozen times, I started to fantasize about some kind of booby trap like a cable across the road, or throwing a brick through his window, etc. Finally, I came up with an idea that seemed practical, and I hoped would be effective. I waited until he did it again, and then the next morning on my way to work, I drove past his house and tossed a handful of roofing nails onto his driveway in front of his parked bike. I figured he'd get the message and cut that crap out. Nope, not a week later he was at it again. So the morning after that, I tossed the rest of the box of roofing nails on his driveway. That seemed to get the message across. He didn't do it again after that. Story number 3. She thought she got away unscathed. I own an apartment in NYC in Manhattan and decided to rent it out, furnished, and move to the house I had bought for my infirm mother and take care of her on a full-time basis. She's 87. The rental income was to become my main source of income. My new tenant, a middle-aged woman from Queensland, Australia, lacked previous landlord references since she said she had owned and lived in her home for 30 years. She was gainfully employed, met the financial criteria to qualify, and provided some solid letters of reference. Long story short, she stopped paying the rent 7 months into her 1-year lease. My attempts to contact her were unsuccessful, so I took her to housing court and had her evicted and sued for damages in small claims court. Damaged microwave, stained sofas, apartment left in filthy condition. As you can imagine, she skipped the court dates, surreptitiously moved out of the apartment, completely ghosted me and fled back to Australia, where it would be very expensive for me to remotely hire a local lawyer to domesticate the financial judgments and garnish her wages. I was adamant that she wasn't going to do this to any other landlord and plotted my revenge. She has a very unique name, so I bought her domain name. Let's say her name is Jane Smith. I purchased janesmith.com and built a website. I proceeded to post the details on said website. Her photo, An official copy of the financial judgments I won against her. She owes me $16,000 in unpaid rent, plus $7,000 plus in damages, including photos of the filth left in the apartment, the damaged furniture and broken microwave, the notice from the marshal posted on door with eviction details, details about where she worked, and the club she frequents in Queensland to play bridge. I was very careful to only include facts so as not to be accused of slander. I focused on the SEO of the website and managed to have the website be the #1 result when you Google her name. Then I sat back and looked at the stats of the website visits, which showed her employer had visited the site, and I also got emails from some people who had seen her at a professional conference she attended and wanted to let me know her whereabouts. In addition, I communicated with the people who wrote letters of reference on her behalf, which she submitted when she applied for the apartment, and told them about her unscrupulous behavior. It key to S. Now going to be 3 years. I still own her domain name, website is still up and still gets visitors, and if you Google her name it's still at the top of the rankings. Although keeping the website going is costing me some dollar, the satisfaction of knowing that she has been publicly unmasked and can't swindle others continues to give me great satisfaction. She arrogantly and callously cost me $20,000 in unpaid rent and damages, and it is now costing her far more than she saved in unpaid rent. Any job she applies for, any apartment she tries to rent, anyone she tries to date will know the truth behind the mask. Angela in Queensland. You now know Fafo. Story number 4. Helping my father. So my dad was redundant from his previous job, and he picked up a cash-in-hand job since there wasn't anything else available. And cash-in-hand jobs aren't by the books, therefore there's no proof of payment. His boss owes roughly £2,500, and I know for sure he will not pay the full amount and will start ignoring my dad's call, cause he started it already. My dad says some chef got over £6 per 7K outstanding. It's a restaurant, so it's hard seeing my dad suffer like this, and he says his colleagues are even more trouble. I can speak to him face to face, but as a son, I want to help him. Story number 5. My favorite revenge. Many years ago, I bought an expensive video camera at a Dutch auction on eBay. For those who don't know, a Dutch auction is one where you enter a bid, and the top bidders win the auction items. I thought I had carefully checked out the seller by reading his reviews, etc., but after I won, it all went to hell. Yes, the seller had good reviews as a buyer. He had worked for about 6 months to establish himself, then went in for the kill. He auctioned off 5 cameras when he only had 1, and I was the second to claim my prize. There were fewer safeguards back then, and I obtained his address, a small town in Texas. I wrote a letter to the editor of his local paper, naming him and outlining his scam. They wouldn't print it, but suggested I come at it from a different angle. So I wrote another letter, urging people to write to their congressman to enact laws to prevent such thievery, and mentioned, oh, by the way, a man in your town did this to me, and if you want his name, write to this throwaway email address. I got a dozen emails from his fellow townspeople, and I named him and told my story. The reaction was hilarious. About half of them wrote me back, with information about his job, his car, and the fact that he was kind of a skeevy individual altogether. One of them even went to his grandma's house and told her about it. Gotta love small towns. I never got my money back, but I got a lot of satisfaction in exposing him. Story number 6. Neighbor keeps accidentally blowing his leaves into my yard, so I finally returned the favor, and I'm honestly pretty proud of what I did. For weeks, my neighbor has been accidentally blowing his leaves right into my yard. Like every single time he gets out the leaf blower, my lawn ends up covered in his leaves. I tried giving him the benefit of the doubt at first, but after politely mentioning it once, he just acted like it wasn't a big deal. Well, I'm not about to let someone treat my property like a free dumping ground, so I decided to send a little message. The next time he was outside, instead of just blowing the leaves back, I raked every single leaf that had landed on my yard, every last one, then carefully placed them back onto his lawn in neat piles. No leaf blower shortcuts for me. I wanted him to know I put in the effort. Honestly, it felt great. Sometimes you just have to set boundaries and show people you're not someone to mess with. If you keep letting people slide, they'll keep stepping all over you. I'm proud of standing up for myself in a small, but satisfying way. Sometimes the best revenge is just making sure people know where the line is. Number 7. I'm marrying my bully's little brother. She wasn't just my bully, she bullied a lot of the girls we went to junior high school with. She would make rude, petty, derogatory statements about and to other girls. I wasn't tortured by any means, but she definitely made me and others feel deflated and unwanted. I didn't know she had siblings until I met her brother at a party right after I graduated high school. He chatted me up and I ignored him because he was 2 years my junior. Her brother and I reconnected 8 years later in 2020 through a dating app. He proposed at the end of 2024, and our wedding is this October. She's not invited. Story number 8. New neighbor does not care about clearance space between properties. The house north of mine was sold about a year ago. First thing they did was to cut the old trees away cause they were blocking all the sun from our property. Well, fine, I guess this is true and valid. Next thing they did was to build a 250 meters high fence, which is about half a meter higher than allowed. Fine, I don't mind cause it's not blocking sun from my property anyway cause their house is located north of me. Then they planted 2 trees about 1 meter away from the border, which is about 2 meters closer than allowed. Well, I still did not mind. Then they built a garden shed exactly at the border, which is closer than allowed. Well, okay, just do what you want. 3 days ago, they demanded that I knock down my stone wall cause it is goddamn ugly and old. Their fence is some gabion kind crap from the next DIY shop. I told them that their crappy fence also hurts my eyes, and Hay responded, "It is a new fence, right from the shop, and also, get rid of your damn rooster and your chicken, yada yada yada." To which I responded, they should either move back to the town they came from, or crawl back into the hole. Vulgar anatomical paraphrase that starts with a C and ends with unt. They came out, turned around, and walked away. Well, I thought about contacting my lawyer to get all their crap torn away that is not far enough from the border. Would not cost me anything. But I thought, well, there must be another option that really pisses them off. So today I ordered 4 princess/empress/foxglove trees, Paulownia tomentosa, with a height of 250 meters. Those trees are supposed to grow about 15 to 25 meters tall, with an impressive growth of up to 4 meters annually. With a little bit of luck and a green thumb, this will completely block the sun from their property within a couple of years. With a little bit more luck, these trees will maybe grow 4 meters within 2 years, which will be a significant sun blocker for these dorks. They can't do anything about it, cause they already planted their trees too close to the border so I can do the same. Bad luck for them that their property is located in an almost perfect angle to the north of me, so they won't have sun from about 10 in the morning until the sun goes down due to a tall building located to their southwest. Story number 9. Got kicked out of university and deported back to the country for cheating in a relationship. This is not my own story, but one of my friends. My friend was studying abroad while having a long-distance relationship with his girlfriend in our home country. He used to get his maths assignment done from his girlfriend, and he would just submit them. He found another girl in his university, and they both got involved, eventually cheating on his girlfriend. She somehow found out that he was cheating. His university was pretty strict regarding plagiarism. His girlfriend mailed all of the original assignments to the university, explaining to them that they were solved by her and not him. As a result, he got kicked out of university and deported back to his home country. Story number 10. It was SOOO loud. I had a pair of Bluetooth headphones that I put through hell. No matter how many times I dropped, smashed, dropped in water, etc., they kept on ticking. The volume and power buttons didn't work, so volume was stuck on max level, and if they had a charge, they were on. Well, about 6 months ago, those headphones were stolen from my desk one day. It didn't bother me too much because shit happens. What did bother, though, was I saw this coworker this past Saturday with my busted headphones on. The blue duct tape holding the right side together gave it away. This morning, at our department meeting, the thief took her phone too far away from her bag that she had my headphones in. Well, my phone still had them on the Bluetooth connection list, and what do you know? They mysteriously connected. I figured I'd let it go, but I wouldn't be typing this if I did now, would I? Somehow the headphones started blasting a weird pornographic screaming and slapping sound, and a very vulgar-mouthed female was instructing her partner on how much harder she wanted her hoo-ha busted, slapping very loud. Must have been a mean game of patty cake or clapping hands at a really fast pace, but it was a plopping sound like their hands were wet or covered with Vaseline. Not sure if I can mention brand names, but the headphones rhymed with Pose Quiet Comfort. No matter what the thief did, they just wouldn't turn off or even go lower. Nothing worked, and that same vulgar mouth lady was trying to get her partner to look in her mouth or something. He must not have been paying attention because she kept yelling at him to come look in her mouth or something like that. The thief eventually ran out of the meeting in front of our entire department that was only being held to introduce our new director. You better believe I watched her get far away enough to turn my volume down on my phone. I just wouldn't want something like that to mistakenly be blasted from my pocket. I also made sure to delete them from my Bluetooth list as well. We've been back at our desks since 1, and the thief just hasn't showed up yet. Plop, plop, plop! So, I have this edit madness figured out, and after a suggestion to add the update, here it is for now. We had another department meeting today from 9 to 10. HR, the new director, and all supervisors were required to be there, in person or online. They reviewed the administrative regulation for personal electronic devices and made it very clear that pornographic material of any kind is not allowed while on company time/property. The thief mysteriously called in sick, and everyone is assuming she will call in for the rest of the week. Most likely will have a 5-day suspension or worse. I'm waiting to see if she makes eye contact with me, when she comes back. It's unfortunate to say that the thief is that one coworker that everyone has to pull weight for. So even with a possible suspension pending, that just means we have to do her work until she comes back. The 4th of August 25 update. She got fired. Word is that the occurrence during the meeting wasn't even the last straw. At first I was all in for just embarrassing her as payback, but now I have this feeling of guilt over a piece of shit pair of headphones. Supervisor and HR can't comment on overall reason for the termination, but I know what I did contributed to the decision. I don't know anything about what was going on in her personal life or whatever issues she had, but I know for a fact that this will make it 1,000 times harder. I wasn't prepared for this part, and I doubt she was. Now if any conversations happen about the meeting occurrence, I have to act like I was just as shocked as everyone else until it passes. Other than just letting it go, there's nothing else that would have prevented her termination. Report them stolen, investigation, termination. Take them back, investigation, reprimand, termination. I didn't try talking to her about it first. I just acted out that same day. Looking back on it, I feel like a conversation between us and me telling her I know what she did could have ended this a lot differently. She stole from me and I contributed to her getting fired. Now that's all I can think about. I know what she did was wrong/bad, but I have this feeling that what I did was worse. I feel like shit for riding high on this at the beginning, and other than this online stuff, I can't talk to anyone about it, ever. Story number 11. He stole my crayon in kindergarten, so I ended his family. When I was in kindergarten, I was the best at coloring. My crayons were exquisite. So when Max decided he would steal my red crayon, I snapped. I stopped talking in class, paid attention, got smart, all the way to and through university. I planned. I wasn't going to let it slide. Finally, I knew it was the day. Max had built a good life for himself. Good paying job, nice wife, and 3 kids. While he was at work, the kids were at home with his wife. Her age was about 20-something. Was easy to get past some chloroform on a dishcloth was enough. I stuffed her in the boot of my car, which I later drove into the ocean while she was inside, and got to work. For his youngest, the walls became red, like my crayon. DNA samples afterwards by detectives proved that it was him, but I wasn't done. For his middle, I made him vanish without a trace, just like my crayon. And for his eldest, when they got home they would have seen what happened, but not a trace on the eldest son. Still dead. When taken to the hospital, they found a singular red crayon in his brain. No note for any of them. Just that. Revenge isn't about letting them know it was you. It's about causing pain. Story number 12. Don't mess with The Apprentice. I was an indentured apprentice in the skilled trades back in the 90s, working at a large commercial job site. 5 feet 7 inches, but was pretty muscular at the time. Had a reputation already as a hard worker who listened and did what he was told. And my father was known for 25 years in the trade as well, and respected. I was the highest scoring applicant on the entrance exam in that local's history. I didn't just walk in. There was this tall, thick guy who was American Indian, pulling that card out left and right, was known to be a bully, and treated apprentices like crap. I had put my tool belt down to do something, and he walks up and grabs my 420 and 440 channel locks out and walks away with them. WTF. But as long as they come back to me, fine, whatever. Nope. I can see him approximately 100 the away, does whatever he was doing, and goes put them in his oversized truck. Several journeymen see this too. I walk over to him and ask if he plans on bringing my channels back. He just sneers and turns away. I say it to him again. He turns around like I am below him. He did have about 10 inches on me, and says something like, "Mine now." Yeah, not this guy, buddy. I tell him, you can bring them back, or I can smash in your fucking window and take them back. He looked over his shoulder and sneered again. With maybe a dozen guys there watching, I picked up a 20 ounces hammer, walked over to his truck, and smashed in the driver window with a half-dozen blows, open the door, and take out my tools sitting on the front seat, my name written on the blue rubber handles, and etched into the metal above the joint fastener, walked right past him with channels in one hand and hammer in the other, said something like, "Don't ever fucking steal from me again," and put my stuff back in my belt. Dude was livid, wanted me thrown off the job site and out of the trade, screaming at the foreman. But some of the old-timers came up and told the foreman, "Nope, dude did what he had to do. You don't steal another man's tools, period." At that point, some of the younger journeymen all admitted they saw him do it, said I gave him 3 chances, and after that took care of it. Every site I was on, guys were calling my father and telling him where I was, what I was doing, that I was out there busting my ass, working hard and learning. When my father heard about this on a phone call, he just turned and looked at me and slightly nodded his head in approval. My father died less than a year ago, and as I go through his tools, I see them all marked the same way he taught me, and even his father's stuff, same trade, and grandfather's tools, different trade. And every time I use those very same channels from that day, my name's still easily seen. I can see him nodding to me. Story number 13. I will have my vengeance. Today my girlfriend was taken from me. We've been together for about 2 years, and we were planning to get married. We would have had a bright future together. We would have been married and had a family. We were already living together, so we had it good. But that came to an end today. The harsh world have taken her too soon. I'm sad, so I don't want to say death. But it was no accident. She was a victim of a brutal crime. It was murder. And because of some ruthless criminals, I will never get to see her again. Her friends will never get to see her again. Her family will never get to see her again. Everyone who loved her will never get to see her again. I wish I was there to protect her, but I wasn't. Sadly, I was away at work, out of state. I doubt the police will catch these people. Crime is on the news every single day. Murder after murder. Death after death. And if I don't do something about it, who will? If I don't get my revenge, these criminals will go unpunished. If I don't get justice for her, these murderers will only take more innocent lives. I can't let this go. Now a little about me. You don't know me, and you never will. But I was the wrong person to mess with. I've started martial arts when I was 4 years old, and I've been training for 20 years year-round. I'm 24. My girlfriend was 28. I also wrestled in college, back in the day for D1. But I am not here to brag. I've been trained in BJJ, Jiu-Jitsu, non-Brazilian, Nogi, wrestling, every style, Greco-Roman, freestyle, folk style, catch, and even sumo, karate, taekwondo, sambo, kung fu, muay thai, vale tudo, boxing/kickboxing, Wing Chun, judo, Kali, and probably many more martial arts that I forgot to mention. Like I said, I'm not here to brag about being this lethal, I'm just telling you my very lethal skill set. I also weightlift, so that I'm big and strong. Plus, I was trained in dozens of weapons, from firearms, swords, daggers, knives, to almost everything. I think you get the point of this paragraph. I'm a human weapon. I was clearly the wrong guy for these criminals to mess with. I wish to keep me secrecy, so this isn't verifiable. I'm not giving you all of my details because I don't want unnecessary complications. This isn't a call for help. I'm not asking to report a crime. So this isn't a plead for law. This is more of a declaration. Trust me. I will find whoever killed my beloved girlfriend/future wife, and I will stop them. You should know what I mean. Due to rules, I cannot say what I will do, but these thugs will be brought to justice. My own brand of justice. As a dangerous man, I have the ability to see this through. Thanks for the understanding, everyone. Story number 14. How to get revenge on two manipulative individuals. For context, I was talking to this guy who I was interested in, and he seemed relatively interested in me too. We'll call him Brian. However, he had just gotten out of a toxic relationship. I'm talking like 2 days. I didn't know, and found out about 2 days later, and I said that I would give him time to heal and whatnot because I didn't want to try and be with him while he was too vulnerable. He kept insisting I stayed and became his friend because I seemed nice. Anyway, his toxic ex reached out to me a few days later and began spamming death threats to me, but later calmed down after I reasoned with her. I had no idea what to do, so I just blocked her. Brian later told me to not pay attention to her and that he no longer wants her. He talked about all the bad things she had done to him, which were actually pretty terrible, like threatening to kill his pets, etc. Moving on, he started getting flirty with me, and I was hesitant, but unfortunately I gave in and started flirting back. We later had a sort of talking stage or situationship. I had actually grown slight feelings for him. He would call me things like dears and darling, and dedicate songs to me in his Instagram notes. I started telling him eventually that maybe it was best that I leave him, since his mental health isn't in the right state, to which he replied by begging me to stay, which I did. This lasted for about a month, and we were already into each other, and it was clear. However, one random day, he just started replying less and saying we should slow down, to which I agreed. But then on, he started saying it wasn't going to work out and that he was going to leave me. I was confused because earlier he was begging for me to stay, meanwhile he healed. Then when we made it clear we were just friends, my friend decided to set me up with somebody else, to which Brian responded by blocking me on everything, but occasionally unblocking me to call me a bitch and say that all he said and did for me was fake because he thought I could fix him. Also, how he never wanted to see me or talk to me ever again. Of course, I was pretty sad, and I cried a lot, but it hurt a lot. I had pretty much just wasted a whole month on a guy who never even wanted me. The reason why I'm writing this, though, is because his ex-girlfriend, or current now IDK, they most likely got back together after he said all those things to me. She texted me saying how pathetic I was, and how he never loved me, and how I'm a horrible person. I desperately need help getting back on them online, since I'm not one to do anything in person. Does anyone have any advice? And please don't comment if you'll just put, "Doing better is the best revenge." I've done that too many times and haven't gained any sort of satisfaction. Any psychological sort of revenge is welcomed. Story number 15. How can I get revenge against my father? My father has been in charge of making me feel less than all my life. He beat, abused, and kidnapped me throughout my life until he finally left my house. My uncles and closest family don't mind and let it go with the fact that he's always going to be my dad. Even so, I would love to be able to do something, even if it is slow, even years of work. But I want it to end up crazy. I want it to suffer as much as I do. Even if I could die, for me it is a gift. However, I am not interested in lowering myself to his level and committing as many crimes as he has committed, nor in something that makes my family angry with me, something anonymous, that is distant, that no one ever knows it was me. Story number 16. My friend made fun of me, so I ruined his relationship. Some backstory. I, 18M, have always had beef with a friend of mine. Let's call him Tom. Honestly, I don't even know when or why it started. It's been like this for so long. But I think it all stems from the fact that Tom doesn't like my personality as a whole. He's even talked shit about me behind my back multiple times. Anyway, a while ago I was hanging out with my friends, and he was there since we're part of a larger friend group. He started with his usual snide remarks, and it escalated into actively making fun of me. When it got awkward, since no one was laughing, he said it was a joke and called me a weirdo for not being able to take a lighthearted joke. Things moved on, but after a while he got back to it, continuously mentioning that nobody here liked me. He's been trying to screw with my relationships with others in the group for a while now. I just gritted my teeth. I didn't want to give him the satisfaction of seeing me mad, especially because I mostly knew none of what he was saying was true. But he took it too far. I told him to shut the fuck up, that he doesn't look cooler by bringing others down. Apparently that hit a nerve, way more than I expected. He beelined for my lunch bag and started eating and throwing my sandwiches on the ground while saying, "You can't do anything about it." Now, I know it may sound petty, it's just sandwiches, but seeing him act like that and realizing he was right, that I couldn't do anything about it, we were in public and I wasn't about to get into a fight, something in me snapped. Even if I could cut him off as a friend, it wouldn't change much. He'd still do this shit whenever we crossed paths. In that moment, all the past shit came flooding back. The snide remarks, the jokes at my expense, the embarrassing moments he brought up in front of the girl I had a crush on. And suddenly, I felt nothing for him. No empathy. I wanted him to hurt just like I did. So that same day, when I got back, I started brainstorming ways to ruin his life. I remembered he had a girlfriend, so I created a fake account, knowing he'd fall for it instantly. I followed him from the account, and surprise, he followed back right away. Things stayed that way for a while. I knew he wouldn't text me without an incentive, so I started phase 2 of my plan. Over the next 2 weeks, I started getting closer to him. It began with laughing at his jokes, telling him that what happened was all good. And, actually, after some time, we were on good terms. Now maybe this is where I became the asshole. I had the opportunity to move on and be the bigger person, but I didn't. I stuck with the plan. I brought up how I'd been talking to this cute chick, and he told me that a cute girl had sent him a follow request a while ago. I asked him to show me. When he did, I acted surprised and started pushing him to message her. After some persuasion, he agreed, though he said his girlfriend wouldn't be happy about it. I told him not to overthink it, that she would never find out. So he DM'd me, the fake account, saying hello. We started talking for a while. A few days later, he asked if I was single. I said yes, and asked about his situation. He said he was single too. Then we started flirting. I took screenshots of all of it and sent them to his girlfriend. Now she hates him. Her friends hate him. Everyone thinks he's an asshole and a total piece of shit. Story 17. Help me get revenge on the worst person imaginable. Hello. Let me preface by saying that I'm coming here as an act of desperation after months of torment. Even though I wouldn't describe myself as an exemplary person, I always try to do good if possible and not let things I can't change affect me. However, this thing I am going through has affected me very thoroughly, and I guess I am at my boiling point. This actually starts at my early childhood, when our dad impregnated his mistress and my parents then divorced. Obviously, I didn't know at that time, but as he made me and my brother meet his new family over time, I slowly realized the truth. The weird thing is, my dad was actually the sweetest and kindest parent growing up, while my mom was very unstable and abusive. He always apologized if he so much as raised his voice and tried to always please us. I was upset with his past, but I basically never brought it up. Everything changed this autumn. My father has been afflicted with many illnesses for as long as I remember, but for the last couple years he developed lung cancer, which he did overcome, but then metastasis appeared in his brain. I visited him as much as I could and always tried to get him to quit smoking and to eat healthier. He made me promise not to tell anything to my grandmother, his mother, who was distraught after her husband's passing. He also had cancer, and even though I hated being dishonest, I agreed. Obviously, this didn't last long, and she called me during my uni midterms with a very alarmed voice. Apparently, she found out he had cancer and went to visit him with sweets and extra money she had accumulated over the years. pretty hefty sum by our country's standards. She got berated by my father's wife over her not accepting her due to what happened with my parents. She then got kicked out by my father, and he still doesn't talk to her. I was absolutely shocked by this behavior, and after a week of mulling over this and becoming more upset, I called my dad, criticized his behavior, and just venting about the adultery and everything I haven't ever told him. I even called his wife a whore, which she is. After him continuing lying to me about very obvious things, I hung up because I couldn't get to him. 2 days later, my grandma is telling me that my dad is taking away me and my brother's tuition money that was at her place. I went to her place and she passed me the phone after she talked to my dad. When I asked him why he was doing this, he said it was for his treatment and told me I wanted him to die. Didn't stop cursing my grandma, unimaginable thing to do against one's parent in my culture, and said I wanted his death again and again and again. I was absolutely in hysterics. My heart couldn't stop beating, and I told him to take everything and never talk to me again. I went months without contacting him and couldn't believe my sweet dad, who always cherished us and did everything for his friends and family, could do such a thing. My grandma, unlike me or my brother, still tried to talk with his only son, but he was very bitter towards her and even in our talk said that she poisoned us against him. She did no such thing, and actually insisted that we be more understanding towards our dying father. Obviously, I also thought that, and was mentally torturing myself for months on end. Eventually, I mustered up the courage to call him, and he agreed that I'd come up to his house. What happened there is something. His bitch wife tried just about everything to get under my skin, and even my dad said the most cutting remarks. She also unintentionally admitted that she basically did that to my grandma as well during our conversation. I realized what was happening, and, despite my hot temper, managed to stay clear-headed and ended our meeting in a civil way and hugged it out with my dad. Things are still tense, and I need help with how to fight with that woman. I've genuinely contemplated just ending her, but my family is warning against it. She basically poisons his mind and managed to take control of all his resources by putting all of his property on either hers or her family members' names. I don't care about her wealth, but I don't want such an evil person to win in the end. No one should build happiness on other people's misery. There's many horrible things she has done that I hadn't mentioned, but you get the gist. So how do I do it? How do I ruin her life? I'm not ever superstitious, and I'm willing to consider curses. I don't even care about going to hell anymore. I'd appreciate any advice or idea. Story 18. Mock me? Fine, I'll waste your time. I've been a fan of revenge stories for a little while now and finally have one of my own. It started 2 days ago when I received a call from somebody claiming to be from TELUS, a phone company. They can reduce my monthly bill by 40%, he claimed. This is a scam that's been happening, and I knew it was when he asked me what my monthly bill is. If you work for TELUS, you would know that. I told him, and he said I was right and hung up. About an hour later, same call. Different guy. I told him to remove my number from the calling list, and he just goes, "Na na 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 na," in a mocking tone before he hung up. That pissed me off. I was waiting for them to call again, but they didn't for the rest of the day. Yesterday, in the afternoon, my phone rings, and it's them. I'm going to waste as much of their time as possible. Same spiel as last time, 40% off my monthly bill. What is it? I told them my last bill was $2.15. No, that's not right, he said. My bill needs to be at least $20 per month to apply. Okay, let me go back to the previous month. $42. I qualify for a free new iPhone too if I'm a senior. So I tell him I'm very senior. What's my date of birth? August 17th, 1901. He questioned the year, but in more of a "do I have this correct way than you were born over 100 years ago" way. I don't know how I managed to stay deadpan and not let out a giggle as that red flag went over his head. Let's see what else I can get away with. My email address? Yes, let me spell it for you. manmeetballdeep@gmail.com. His accent was thick. The T's and P's sound the same, so I say it. Man meet ball deep. Man meet ball deep in your ass. That went flying right over his head, and he just comes back with, "It says that's not a valid email." "Well, your systems are wrong," I say. Then he asks me for my credit card number, so I read him the number off my Pepsi's barcode. Then he asks for my driver's license number. I don't have one. I'm too old to drive. So he asks for any kind of ID. I offer a student ID from 1955. He tells me to wait. I get put on hold and transfers me to somebody else. The whole process starts again. Same questions, same replies. This second guy had one or two more brain cells than the first, though, because when I told him my email address and followed it up with the "man meat ball deep in your ass," he goes, "What did you say?" I said, "Man meat ball deep." "After that?" he asked. I said, "Man meat ball deep is my name." He continues, but I knew I almost blew it. He gets my date of birth and asks if I'm really 125 years old. I say no. I'm 123, and I'll be 124 in August. He asks for my driver's license. No, don't drive. And he won't take a student ID. How about a passport? No to that. He asks for my address, so I gave him the address of the closest police station. Okay, now you want my credit card number. I read the barcode again to him. That's not right, he said. A Visa starts with 4. So I tell him the barcode again, starting with a 4. But that's only 13 numbers. I think you are wasting my time, sir. You're goddamn right I am. Story number 19. Silence can be vengeance. I once worked as a therapist in a juvie for boys. Most think this would be a rough job because of the boys, but no. I loved those kids. I hated the people I worked with. None of the people working there, besides the therapists, thought therapy was valid and viewed us as a waste of time and space, even the people running the place. I made a sexual harassment complaint against a man working there, not knowing that he was related to the guy who ran the place. Of course, nothing happened to him, but I became public enemy number 1 after that. They were obviously trying to make things bad for me, but I persevered because it was COVID and I needed to survive. Once things calmed down, I decided that it was time to leave. It was the end of June and a lot of my boys would leave the program in July. So I told the head of therapists that I would leave at the end of July to get those kids out, give me time to train the remaining therapists on the kids who would still be there after I left, and it would give them time to find a new therapist. She was grateful and said it was kind of me to do this. This was on a Monday. On Friday, they called me into their office to tell me that they accepted my resignation that day, and I could leave. They seemed surprised when I accepted that with a smile. I realized then that I could easily get my vengeance by being silent. Since I was no longer an employee, I was not allowed back on the ground, so someone had already packed my things for me. They did not let me say goodbye to my boys, so they got what was coming to them. What they didn't know was that our IT guy was terrible at his job. He was supposed to create a file on each therapist's computer so that we could put our files there, and all the therapists could have access. Problem is, he didn't do it correctly on my computer, and even though I told him this, he never fixed it. Due to this, I just saved everything on my computer, but they would need my password to have access to that. I never gave it to them. I met with some of the therapists who still worked there for lunch about a month later. They were happy that I was doing better than when I was working there. Apparently, the head of therapists had to take over most of my caseload and had quit. She had only been in the job about 3 months when she left, while I had lasted there for over 2 years. They had to rewrite a ton of my paperwork since they could not get access to my computer, which helped cause her frustration and final decision to leave. After how the other therapists saw how I was treated, most of them left soon after, and the only one to remain was terrible at her job. In their desperation to replace the therapists fast enough, they even rehired a therapist that had left previously, who was so bad at her job that she was deeply hated by every kid on her caseload. Funny thing about that therapist is that she was cruel to me, and I got my vengeance on her as well. Since her husband began flirting with me on Facebook, I let it go on for a bit and then sent her pictures of his messages to me. I don't know what happened after that, but I assume their marriage had some difficulties. It seems that the place never really recovered when it came to the therapy department. And the sad part is, that's where most of their funding came from. Funny how people put down those who they truly rely on. Story 20. How do I get back at my boss for cutting my hours? Since the beginning of the year, I work as a remote assistant for an independent business owner. For the past month, I've been working the 8 hours a day, 5 days a week we agreed upon. The increase in hours was so I could do email outreach to a list of local businesses. Sales was not part of my original job scope because I suck at sales, but I was willing to give it a shot because the scripts were all provided for me, and I believe in the service. My boss set a goal for me to retain 3 new clients in a 3-week period. It's been 2 weeks, and although I've done all the work of emailing and calling places, and I've shared our information with hundreds of places, I still have no leads. My boss said they're still happy with my work, but I think it's because I didn't meet this goal that they're cutting my hours. Our original plan for the summer was for me to work 2 hours a day during the 3 weeks they're on vacation. When they returned, I'd go back to full-time hours. Legally in our area, the minimum shift length is 3 hours, but I agreed since the work is remote and there wouldn't be that much work to do, I'd simply have to monitor email, client requests, coordinate with independent contractors. But then, on Friday, my boss said I now wouldn't be paid during their vacation at all, claiming there was no work to do. When we did resume work upon their return, instead of hourly, I would be paid a set retainer per week moving forward. No work is a fucking lie because a pay period falls within the vacation, so at the very least I'm going to have to reconcile the independent contractors' invoices, which is 2 hours of work in itself. Even if I spend 10 minutes a day monitoring the email and client portal, that's 3 hours of work right there. Having been fucked over by employers before, this seems like they are doing a soft launch of firing me, especially since they tasked me this week with writing SOPs, corporate speak for instructions, on the duties within my scope. I'm pissed. I need to find work ASAP, but I also need to complete the work to ensure I get paid for this month. How can I legally fuck with this business owner without facing consequences and still getting paid? Story number 21. My math teacher wanted me to fail me besides me answering correctly his test, so I requested the government an agent to oversee the final exam. Okay, Reddit, I just want to share this little anecdote I went through some years ago. I don't care if you believe it or not. If you decide to take my word for it, I welcome you all to this story that gives me a smile each time I remember it, and/or when I try to go sleep. Some quick notes. First, I'm not English native, so I apologize in advance for any grammatical or orthographic mistake I make. I tried to review everything before posting, but I know some things might slip. Second, this didn't happen in the USA, so that's why I added a lot of context in some places. So, in middle school, it's not called like that in here, but it's almost the equivalent, I had a dickhead of a math teacher. His way of teaching was really obsolete. First, he didn't score by solving the math problems correctly per se, but instead he scored based on solving the problems the way he wanted us to solve it. Say, solve this using X method, it didn't matter to him. We reached the correct answer using a better and also correct method. Second, he also accounted into final score the notes we've taken. Well, with that background, I was kinda messy in taking my notes, but I did it in a way I understood perfectly, and in each test I got every answer right. Maybe beside 1 or 2 tests around the year, nobody is perfect. But Mr. Dickhead started taking points for things like not using the method he asked, not being organized, not using the colors he wanted for each part, not expanding my process, writing fast calculations like sums or subtraction explicitly. We literally needed to write 2 + 2 equals. Here, when we fail a subject, we need to do a special exam, but that also means that you cannot sign into any high school you got accepted to. More context, I know, boring. Here, usually the best high schools are the public ones, or run by universities, and you have to send submissions to each one. Why? Because getting into these means you most likely get directly into some of the best universities here. No need for submissions as long as you get a good grade in them. They are also public, some run by the government, some other are autonomous from the system/government. But all are free, and graduating from these gives you the best job offers. So he more or less screwed my acceptances, and not any acceptances I got accepted into my first 3 choices, not safety choices, top choices, aka so my petty ass couldn't take it anymore, and when the classroom were empty, I just walked to him and said him plainly, "See teacher, you have 2 options. You could either just pass me with 6, here the system rates from 1 to 10 being 6 the minimum passing score, or I could do the special exam and you will have to eat your pride and score me a 10, because I know I'll pass it with 10. Mr. Dickhead sent me to the special exam anyways, thinking he would fail me by nitpicking again. But in this country there's a funny thing you could ask. You'll see, when you have to do this exam, you could ask for a government agent, say a teacher sent by the government branch that takes care of the education system, to oversee and score independently that special exam, and that independent score must be accepted by the teacher no matter why. Most of students don't ask for one because the process is lengthy and slow, so it's a bother, but I did, fueled by anger and pettiness. I went through each step of the process with extreme care and filled every form this government institution sent me to request the agent. So when the day came, I entered the classroom. The exam was taken in, and a few minutes later, lo and behold, the government agent, I started taking my exam. And when I gave my exam back, Mr. Dickhead tried to take it back, but the agent stepped in and took the exam and said, "That's for me." He started scoring immediately, and just as I said, perfect score. And the agent just put a big red 10 in the paper in front of the teacher saying, "This student passed." I also saved some other students who Mr. Dickhead failed. The best image of that moment left in my face that After that, I had to go to a private high school, since I didn't want to wait a year for doing the admissions again. And as for the universities, I had to make submissions for them. I got accepted into my first choice, and that was it. I know it's not like those stories from here in which a student stands up in front of the class and challenges the teacher, directly ending up like a school legend. But as my mother said, bad teachers also give you lessons, and she knows because she is also a teacher, middle school and high school. Also, funny enough, she teaches math, so that's why I got hold of the subject and knew better methods and ways of solving problems. And me, I ended up becoming a high school and university teacher and a researcher. Nothing math-focused. I liked math, but not enough to study something related to it. Now if you expect an ending in which all came back to him, or I met him again, just to rub off how far I came, sorry to disappoint you. I just saw that Mr. Dickhead, once more, riding a bus back to the same middle school while I was going to uni. I didn't talk to him, nor gave him a second look. He just looked older. As for my life now, I'm just looking at some options to do my master's degree, probably in something related to forensic sciences, so wish me luck getting accepted, XD. Story 22. I lost a fight, but I got revenge the next day. True story. This happened back in November 2024. One day at school. It was after school. I was chilling in the bathroom with someone who I thought was my friend. His name is Tyree. He started hitting me out of nowhere, and I tried to fight back, but then he threw me down on the ground. Tyree is a big guy, probably like 280 pounds. After Tyree threw me down on the ground, someone had it on video. Then, after he threw me down, he got on top of me, and I tried grabbing his leg, but he was too big. He got off of me, so then I got back up and left the school. The next day, Tyree started talking shit to me, acting like a badass because of what he did. So I just let talk all that shit. Until 7th period. After class, I walked up to Tyree. I asked him, "Let's go run it again." So he agreed to it. And we both went into the restroom, and he had to take a piss, so he went. And he went to go wash his hands. After he was done, he turned around. And then right there, I socked him in the jaw twice. And I started rushing at him until he fell down on his knee, and then I stopped punching him. As he was on the ground holding his face, I made his nose bleed, and I told him, "This is what happens when you fuck with me, you stupid motherfucker. Don't ever do that shit again," while blood was gushing out of his nose. After I left the bathroom, I had to run out as fast as I could because I didn't know if security found out. So my brother picked me up, so I just ran to his car and jumped in. Then I saw Tyree outside the school. He was leaning on a rail, but other than that, I went home, feeling like a gangster. BTW, I had my fair share of fights. But this is a story that makes me feel good. Comment your thoughts and opinions, please. Story 23. Upstairs neighbor has left us no choice but to move. Recently moved into an apartment which is on the 2nd floor. Shortly after moving in, we realized the neighbor above us on the 3rd floor, 60-o heavyset male, is a complete asshole. He purposefully stomps around at night, literally haven't slept normally even one night since moving in. He purposely drags around his furniture all day, making it impossible for my GF to work from home peacefully. The stomping continues all throughout the night. Not consistently, but literally every 15 to 30 minutes, there will be a giant bang that shakes our entire bedroom and wakes us up. It's been a terrible experience, and now, after realizing that management is on his side since he's lived there for 5 years, and it's basically impossible for us to capture the situation because he's home all day, and so he can see if management is walking to our apartment to try and witness the noise. We're moving out on Tuesday, which is a giant relief. New apartment, and we're on the top floor, so no more sleeping issues. But I want revenge on this motherfucker. This move will cost us extra money and time, and this entire situation is not something we deserved. Any revenge recommendations? Greatly appreciated. Edit. Just wanted to add, since so many people are asking why I don't just record the noise. The leasing office won't accept recordings. They want us to call the off-site security when it is happening, so that they can come into our bedroom and witness it themselves. So basically they're asking us to invite a stranger into our bedroom at 2 a.m. so they can third-party document. The noise is a legit complaint. The worst part about this is the 3 times now I've contacted the security, they never show up. Trust me when I say, it feels like we exhausted all options, which is why now we are moving. Story 24. Ultimate revenge on my sister's cheating ex. My sister's husband cheated on her with a friend of hers. Then he screwed my sis out of their house, and most of the money in the divorce. She was devastated, but eventually she moved on. Meanwhile, the ex married the mistress, who he'd gotten pregnant while still married to my sis. A few years later, my sis was cleaning up her email accounts when she noticed she still had ex's account on her computer. Out of curiosity, she logged in and saw that he'd received an automated email from Ashley Madison saying his account is now active. Remember that website? It's where married people connected to cheat on their spouses. She went on Ashley Madison, and sure enough, he had an account. Lesson: always change your email passwords after a divorce. LOL. When she told me, I had the most devious idea. I created a fake Ashley Madison account, pretending I was a very attractive married woman in his city who wanted to cheat. I sent him a wink, he bit, and we began talking and then planning on getting together for sex. He got very graphic in what he wanted to do and how his wife never wanted to put out. He also included a lot of detail about his life, his job, negative comments about his wife, stuff only he could know. I strung him along for weeks. We exchanged well over 100 messages. Finally, we made plans to get together at a motel near his house. Of course, nobody showed up, but I sent him a message late that night thanking him for the fantastic sex. Then I printed out the entire message exchange and sent it to his wife's office. She obviously bought it. He was livid and sent angry messages to my fake account, but I convinced him that my husband had somehow broken into my account, and that's who mailed it to her. He believed me. She left him, got the house, and full custody of their kid and alimony. This was years ago, and he's never remarried and still lives in a crappy apartment, and has no idea who did this to him. No regrets.